Hi Year 6, it's Miss Perry here. I hope you're all well. This is just going to be a quick video to support you with the Week 3 Maths Lesson 2. The focus here is going to be on rounding, and it will be involving rounding whole numbers, not decimals, and we'll be looking at just revising rounding to the nearest 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 and 1 million. We will not look at rounding when used in different contexts, simply because that is not required in the task. So if we have a quick look at the activities for each lesson, lesson 2 involves rounding whole numbers, so there are no decimals involved, and you're required in the table to round these numbers to the nearest 10, 100, 1,000 and 10,000. Underneath the table, this is extended to also include rounding to the nearest 100,000 and the nearest million. So the next activity in lesson 2 involves 4 challenges where you have to use the clues to identify the correct answer. Only one number will fit all 4 clues. The final activity involves using the 5 digits that have been provided to complete the statements. You are only allowed to use each digit once. So if we take a look at the first activities in lesson 2, they all involve rounding whole numbers, 6 and 7 digit whole numbers to the nearest 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 or a million. Then we can follow for each of these the same steps to success. Remember, when we are rounding whole numbers, all we are doing is saying which multiple they are closest to. So when we're rounding to the nearest 10, we are working out which multiple of 10 the original number is closest to. When we're rounding to the nearest 1,000, we're working out which multiple of 1,000 the original number is closest to. So if we look at step 1, we always need to start by looking at the number carefully. Is it a whole number or is it a decimal? In this case, we're looking at whole numbers, so it will be a whole number. Think about the value of each digit, its place value. How many digits does the number actually have? Step 2, look carefully and think about which number you are being asked to round to. Which multiple. Step 3, circle the digit you are being asked to round to. So if you're being asked to round to the nearest 100, then you need to circle the 100 digit. If you're being asked to round to the nearest 1,000, then you circle the digit that is in the thousands place. Step 4, you then underline the digit to the right, directly on the right of the circled digit. And step 5, if the underlined digit, and that's all you need to look at, if the underlined digit is a 0, 1, 2, 3 or 4, then the circled digit will remain the same. If the underlined digit, however, is a 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9, then we round up and the circled digit will increase by 1. So if we look on the number lines on the slide, you can see that we're being asked to look at nearest 10, nearest 100, nearest 1,000. So if you're being asked to round a number to the nearest multiple of 10, the nearest 10, then your answer must be a multiple of 10. So if we just have a look, we have here 234,560. So we have a 6-digit number, and you can see that the tens digit, the digit that's in the tens place, has been highlighted in red. So if we jump ahead and we add another 10, so the next multiple of 10 would be 234,570, and the last one would be 234,580. So it's important that we're able to recognise and identify the halfway point between each of those jumps of 10. So halfway between 234,560 and 234,570 would be 234,565, because half of 10 is 5. So we've added 5 to the lower multiple of 10. So if we look at the next one, the halfway point would be 234,575. So knowing the halfway point helps us to identify whether a number, when we round it, stays the same. So we might say round down, or whether we round up and it goes to the higher multiple of 10. So now if we look at the nearest 100, so if we take a multiple of 100, 234,500, so the hundreds digit has been highlighted, and then if we jump ahead another 100, so we're counting in hundreds, we would have 234,600, 234,700. So you can see what's happening there. So again, it's important that we recognise the halfway point. So between 234,500 and 234,600, we have 100. So the halfway point would be half of 100. So the next one, the halfway point, will be 234,550. So we've added 50 to the lower multiple of 100. The next one would be 234,650. That comes halfway between the other multiples of 100. And lastly, if we look at multiples of 1,000, you can see that the thousands digit in this case has been highlighted. And how do we recognise a multiple of 1,000? Well, it would have 3 zeros in the last 3 places. So 234,000, 235,000, 236,000. So the halfway point, halfway between 1,000, would be 500. So the next one would be 234,500, 235,500. So now if we repeat the same process with multiples of 10,000, so the first one is 230,000, and you can see that the digit that is in the 10,000s place is highlighted in red. So 230,000, 240,000, 250,000. So the halfway point of 10,000 would be 5,000. So we can now put in the halfway points, 235,000 and 245,000. And the same with the 100,000s. So we know this number is a multiple of 100,000 because it has 5 zeros at the end. So 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. So the halfway point, half of 100,000 is 50,000. So if we just pop those in, 250,000, and then we have 350,000. And then if we look at the millions, actually the bigger the numbers get that you're rounding to, the easier it becomes. So we have 4 million, and we know this is a multiple of a million because it has 6 zeros. 4 million, 5 million, and then we would have 6 million. So half of a million would be 500,000. So you can see 4,500,000, 5,500,000. So knowing where the halfway point helps us to understand why sometimes we say we're rounding down, or it stays the same, or we're having to round up. Okay, so if we now use the number lines to support us with our rounding, we've got 234,572, a 6-digit number, and we're going to round it to the nearest multiple of 10. So it would come approximately here on the number line between 234,570 and 234,580, and we can see that it would round to 234,570. If we do the same with the nearest 100, we have 234,590, which would come approximately here on our number line, and we can see in this case we're going to be rounding up to the higher multiple of 100. And then if we look at the last one, rounding to the nearest multiple of 1,000, we have 234,500. Now we can see that this is already marked on our number line, and when it's in the middle between two multiples, the rule is always the same, and that's that we round up. So continuing using the number line, if we look at rounding to the nearest 10,000, we can see we have 892, which we would place approximately here on our number line, and you could see that that would round up to 250,000. And rounded to the nearest 100,000, we have 360,101, which would be approximately here on our number line, and we can see again that this is past the halfway point, so we would round up, it's closer to 400,000. And then finally we have 4,600,134. So if we look here, that would be 4,000,000 and 600,134 would be approximately there. And again, it's past the halfway point, so it's closer to 5 million. So we round up. So if we have a look at the first activity was rounding numbers, whole numbers, to the nearest 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. So if we now follow our steps to success, step 1 was for us to look very carefully at the number. So the original number is 234,219. So we have a 6-digit number. Step 2 was to look at what we're being asked to round it to. So firstly, we're being asked to round it to the nearest 10. So step 3, we need to circle the digit that is in the tens place. So in this case, it's a 1, and then we underline for step 4 the digit that is directly to the right, which is a 9. So if we have a 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9, this means that this digit, the 1 in the tens, will increase. So we end up with an answer of 234,220, and we can see that that is a multiple of 10 because it has a 0 at the end. If we follow exactly the same steps for rounding to the nearest 100, except remember that we circle the digit we are rounding to, which is the hundreds, and then we underline the digit to the right. So in this case, the digit to the right is a 1, which means the 2 will stay the same. So we end up with 234,200, and this is a multiple of 100 because it has 2 zeros at the end. And if we do the same process with rounding to the nearest 1,000, so we circle the digit which is in the thousands place, and we underline the digit to the right, which is the hundreds. And we can see that we have a 2, which means that the 4 will stay the same. So we end up with 234,000. And we can tell that this is a multiple of 1,000 because it has 3 zeros at the end. And then if we repeat the process again, but because we're rounding to the nearest 10,000, we circle the 10,000 digit and we look at the digit which is in the thousands. And we can see that's a 4, which means that the 3 is going to remain the same. So we end up with 230,000. Okay, if we now look at rounding to the nearest 100,000, we have 5,567,965. So if we circle the hundreds, thousands digit and we underline the digit directly on the right, we can see that that's a 6. So we're going to round up. So the 5 will increase to a 6. If we look at round to the nearest million, so we circle the digit in the millions place and we underline the digit on the right, we can see that that's a 5, so we're going to round up again, so that becomes 6 million. If we look at the next number, if we're round to the nearest 100,000, we circle the digit in the 100,000s place and we underline the digit to the right, so we have a 9, which means that the digit in the 100,000s place is also going to increase by 1. We already have 9, so that means we would have 10 there, 10 in the 100,000s. The biggest digit we're allowed to have is 9, which means that this is going to become a 0 and the millions is now going to increase by 1 to become 8 million. And then again, rounding to the nearest million, we circle the millions, we underline the digit on the right. This is a 9, which means we round up. Okay, so if you want to pause the video and then just have a quick go at these yourself, and then we'll go through the answers. So if we look at the first one, we're rounding to the nearest 100, so we circle the hundreds digit and we underline the digit in the right, which is the tens digit. So the answer we get is 5,419,700, which is a multiple of 100 because it has 2 zeros at the end. Rounding to the nearest 1,000, we circle the thousands digit and we underline the digit to the right. This is a 5, which means that the next digit, the thousands digit, is going to increase by 1 to become a 9. All these other digits will become zeros. So we end up with 8,429,000. The next one, if we're rounding to the nearest 100,000, circle the 100,000, underline the digit on the right. That's a 2, which means that the 9 is going to stay the same in the hundreds of thousands place. So you should have got 900,000. Next one, if we look at round to the nearest 100, circle the 100 digit and underline the digit to the right. This is a 0, which means this digit, the 4, is not going to change. So we end up with 2,018,400. And finally, rounding to the nearest 10, we circle the tens digit and we underline the digit on the right. This digit on the right, the 2, tells us that this digit in the tens, the 3, is going to stay the same. So we get 812,730. Hope you got those right. So if we now have a look at one of the challenge activities, we've got a range of numbers and only one of those will fit all 4 clues. So the first clue, I am a 3-digit number. Well, that's not helpful because all of our numbers are 3-digit numbers. The next clue says I am 700 if you round me to the nearest 100. Well, if we look at all of our numbers, we can see that all of the numbers with the exception of 587 fall between 600 and 800. So if we think about it, any number that is 650 or more will round up to 700, and any that is 749 or less will round down to 700. So any number that falls within that range will be still part of our set. So if we get rid of all of those, we can see that we are left with now 5 numbers. So the next clue says, to the nearest 10, I round up, not down. Well, 726, 676, 685 and 737 to the nearest 10 would all round up. 741 to the nearest 10 would round down to 740. So we can get rid of that. We can eliminate it. Now if we look at the last clue, it says my tens digit is a multiple of 4. So 4, 8. So that allows us now, we can eliminate the rest of the numbers and be left with the 1 that is the answer. Okay, so on the final slide, I've just put up the email address. So if you have any questions about anything that we've covered in this presentation or any of the other Year 6 work that you're doing at the moment, please use the email address to contact us and we'll be happy to get back to you. Hope that helps. Take care.